Very good. Thank you very much. I'd like to call this meeting to order. In terms of opening remarks, first off, I'd like to welcome the public to this session, a special session of the BIFAC committee, and would just like to say thank you and appreciate everyone's participation and attendance. We try and make special meetings the exception. The items before us today, from a timing perspective, need to move forward to be on the next board agenda. So we've called this meeting. With that, I'd like to begin with an acknowledgement that the land each of us is on. We hold this virtual meeting as the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. During today's public session, we have two reports being brought forward for committee's consideration and approval, one regarding a vendor award and one regarding corporate insurance. First up, like to just canvass the committee members for any conflicts of interest. Seeing none declared, we'll move on to approval of the public agenda. With that, I'll ask committee members for items to hold for discussion. Yes, Naram?
Hold item 4, please.
Item 4 held. Anything?
The appliances?
Yes. Yes, the appliances.
Sorry, I don't have an agenda in front of me, Nick. I'm sorry.
And I assume Adele would like to hold item 5 as well. Going out on a limb. So we'll hold both items. With that, can I get an approval of the agenda, please? Thanks, John. Thanks, Naram. All in favor? Carried. Remind me, we have a deputation, but I don't recall which item it's being deputed.
Catherine Wilkinson is deputing in relation to item number 4, and I believe she's in the meeting.
And so we'll begin with the deputation. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Ms. Wilkinson. You can begin anytime.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Your volume
yes.
is somewhat low. If you can speak up, that'd be great.
My volume? My volume's at max. I don't know what your volume is.
That's
okay. So, okay. I'm speaking to item 4, the vendor award. The good news is refrigerators and stoves typically have a life expectancy of 10 to 15 years. And I have seen refrigerators and stoves replaced in units that were not the appropriate size. So the contract language hopefully includes an agreed upon standard size of appliances, with the only exception being, that it's a smaller size kitchen. So, like a bachelor unit. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. So in 2010, Toronto Housing made a commitment that all new replacement stoves will be equipped with what's called the safety element cooking system. There is no mention of this in the report, and I sincerely hope Toronto Housing reconsidered that decision. So just to give you some background, so stoves with safety elements have been proven to reduce kitchen fires. The temperature limiting control prevents the elements from getting hot enough for cooking oil to ignite. Well, it's true, they do reduce kitchen fires. The limited heat also restricts certain types of cooking. Elements take much longer to heat up and to cool down. Boiling water can take 20 minutes or longer. Tenants cannot cook food to their desired temperature. Boiling chicken may be risky. This has caused a lot of anger and frustration for tenants who are not aware of the impact a replacement stove will have on their cooking. The safety elements, as tenants have learned, can be easily replaced and swapped out for regular stovetop elements. As one tenant put it, they might as well have given us an easy bake oven. I know you needed the laugh. Other tenants have installed their own stoves and refrigerators, which may present liability issues for insurance purposes. Repairs for appliances can only be made during regular business hours within 5 business days. Unfortunately, these appliances break down 24/7. This can leave tenants without a fully working stove or refrigerator freezer for a couple of days or longer during a long weekend. This is concerning in the case of refrigerators, as the tenants' foods are spoiled and contaminated after 4 hours. Based on tenant composition, we know that our tenants probably do one big shop, once a month. Toronto Housing was unable to source an after-hours vendor for appliance service and repairs. The interim plan was to ensure they had spare appliances readily available on site or could be replaced temporarily from a vacant unit until such time their appliance could be assessed for repairs. Did you know tenants can file a claim for loss of food due to a broken fridge? No? Well, neither do they. Here's the catch. They must provide proof of grocery receipts. Now, do you know of anyone who actually keeps their grocery receipts? Even if a tenant could produce receipts, they may wait weeks to see if their claim was approved and then wait some more to actually be reimbursed. Food is a necessity. This is unacceptable. I ask the committee to consider the following 3 things. Determine the standard size of appliances being provided. Confirm whether the new stoves will have a safety element. And lastly, ask management to explore a program to provide grocery gift cards to tenants when their groceries are spoiled due to a broken refrigerator. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your deputation, and we'll take that back for consideration. Appreciate you coming today.
Okay.
Were there questions from the committee for management on this item? I think Naram, I believe did you have a question on this item?
I had a broad question in terms of just trying to understand the thought process of wanting to go about awarding this in kind of this method, like in such large scale, and in the terms, like what was the business strategy behind this versus doing it, say, annually on a more fragmented basis? If somebody could just speak to that.
So through the chair, thank you for the question. We have looked at a few different strategies around securing our appliances. One of the areas we identified was it requires the vendor to have a lot of appliance on site in a warehouse. And so one of the things we were looking at is whether there's a possibility to look at additional vendors. We thought in terms of reliability and ensuring that we have the amount of appliances and economies of scale, we thought this was the best approach. We have divided the vendors into a few different areas. So we have a vendor system in place for the East region, and this is specific to the West region. We are working with 2 vendors that we've broken down the portfolio in the West for appliances available as needed, but also looking at prices. I have Clinton Reed, our Manager of Operations Compliance, here with me as well. Clinton, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, to add maybe through the chair, and thank you for the opportunity. The strategy around the way that we awarded this was based on lessons learned from our COVID period, where we knew appliances in terms of the time frame and to receive those appliances and the impact that it had on tenants. By dividing the portfolio in half and also taking a 5-year strategy compared to a 1-year gave us the ability from a business perspective to lock down prices. We knew that by doing this, we actually were able to save a little bit longer instead of actually doing a year-to-year RFP. we are able to at least lock in those prices from a business sense to make sure that we can get the best prices that we require for the corporation.
All of that, if everyone's done, all of that makes sense to me. I think that the one comment I'd make is I definitely think the COVID era of supply deliveries is probably changing to TCH's favor. And so I was going to kind of draw on the point that I appreciate the need to have these appliances on a demand basis, because of course no one wants any of our tenants to not have a functioning appliance. It's incredibly inconvenient and sometimes, quite frankly, impractical to live on a day-to-day basis. It's just I always these are large sums, and it makes us a little susceptible to certain vendors. And in this case, we had 3, of which 2 were awarded, and there's always that risk now that if one of these vendors disappears, we have very strong challenges, and then we do go back into the market. We're again open to repricing, but just generally wanted to understand this approach. And so historically, sorry, we didn't do this type of term. Is that correct?
Prior to COVID?
Correct.
Clinton, are you able to speak to that?
Yes, Nadia. Thank you for that question. Yes, we did. The challenge that we had in the previous contract was the fact that we actually lost one vendor during the COVID era because they could not supply appliances. It took them 6 months to actually deliver appliances during that, and we hadn't taken the necessary steps of verifying that they actually had the inventory to meet the demand of TCHC. In this RFP, looking at the data, looking at the amount of orders that we have, the specific appliances that we have, we embedded this in our RFP process to make sure, to Nadia's point, that the inventory piece was they are able to hold 2 months worth of inventory based on the average amount of orders that we get from TCHC. And the strategy that we did this year was we implemented quite a few steps that were different from the learnings that we got through the COVID era to make sure that we are not in that position where we're facing legal actions in regards to not being able to provide appliances to our vacant units or to on demand to tenants.
Do you mind me just asking what is our protocol in place to know that on an ongoing basis they have 2 months worth of inventory?
Thank you for that question. In one of the aspects that we've introduced is our monthly meetings with the vendors in regards to the order statuses. We get a weekly report of the amount of orders that have been put in through our BIR system. And part of our vendor management piece on these quarterly and monthly meetings, we are looking at any issues that have been deemed in terms of lack of supply for particular appliances. We have put in place a backup in terms of if one vendor cannot supply that, we are able to pull from the east side or from the other vendor to be able to address the need for that. But in terms of the work order amounts of the amount of appliances submitted compared to the deliveries, these are on the monthly tracking that we do that will let us know whether these vendors are able or are missing the SLAs that we've put in the contracts.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate all that that information.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item? Go ahead, Don.
Yep.
Yeah. How much do we pay for our, is there a standard set price that we pay for a stove and for a refrigerator?
So through the chair, yes, there's standard prices for all of those items.
And so I'll have to say that I would have found the report more helpful had we had those prices and some numbers set beside the total award amount. How many stoves are we getting? How many refrigerators are we getting? Or do we buy microwaves? Does this include microwaves?
So through the chair, I don't believe it includes microwaves. Clinton, you can correct me if I'm wrong there. But certainly for the upcoming board meeting, we could bring additional information so that you have access to that. I think the board meeting's on Friday, so we can definitely break it down a little bit further.
That would be great. And then what's our policy on the replacement of these major appliances? Do we just replace them when they break down, or do we replace them, you know, after 5 years, or what do we do? I mean, I'm just curious to know what that is.
So through the chair, there is a process by which we identify the price of the repair. And there becomes a point where it becomes economically unsustainable to repair the appliance, at which point we replace it. Clinton, I don't know if you want to speak to specifics on it, but essentially we do calculate whether it makes more sense to repair it or replace it at the time. And oftentimes we find it cheaper to replace the item, given the extension of the repair. Clinton?
Thank you, Nadia, for that question. In the process that we do have a third-party company to Galaxy, as well as Mohan, approved vendors that actually come in and do an assessment. They provide us with a form that we've created that let us know in terms of the condition of the appliance, any pictures, any rationale in terms of the reason of why we need to replace that appliance. That document then is passed over to the manager, the maintenance manager, to review. And then at that point, they approve that, and a clerk puts in an order to replace that appliance. But that step is critical for us to understand whether we do have the replacement parts to be able to repair that particular appliance. But in some cases where those appliances are outdated and they're no longer in stock and those parts are not easily accessible, we then deem that in terms of the ability to be able to repair that, we convert that into a replacement and we put the order through for the replacement. Okay, so for this award amount, how much of that is for equipment? All of this actual award amount is all equipment. This is all the number of appliances based on the trends that we've had in the previous years. We took the number of orders that we had last year, calculated that based on the price of each appliance that we negotiated with the proponents, and that's how we got to that amount. All of this is based on replacement value, not repair. Okay, and so does the award mean that amount will be paid, or will we only pay the amount for what our demand is? Thank you for that question. Yes, this is all we are estimating up to. Okay. And this is not in any way a way that we are guaranteeing that we are spending this amount. On demand. We are learning based on previous experiences and change orders, and making sure that we're building these contingencies that actually allow us the ability to be able to, if there is a jump in appliances or requests, that we have the ability to meet that demand. But there's no way, this is all demand based, and it's only based on what is submitted that we replace. Okay, so if you could provide that information for Friday, or I mean, if it's not available for Friday, it's not like I'm going to vote against it, but I would like to know how many refrigerators are we replacing a year? How many stoves are we replacing a year? What is the cost of those appliances? And then, if possible, I don't know if you have this, what's the average age of the replacement? Is it 10 years? Is it 12 years? If you could get that information. I guess, and the last question that I have is this driven, are the appliances, I mean, do we buy only one brand, or do we buy several brands, or how does it work in terms of choosing a brand that's reliable and, you know, it's a real workhorse? With that question, we have multiple brands that we have. In a new vendor, the two proponents, HD is actually, they have a relationship with GE appliances, and okay, that's their take in terms of being able to do that. K has multiple providers that we have in terms of appliances. The challenge that we have is the fact that our buildings have been constructed to very specific sizes, right, and the fridges and the stoves are very specific in terms of that. And then also the requirement of a standardization of appliances. that is why, going back to the vendors, we gave them a list of sizes and appliances that we've used in the past that have been reliable. And they go out to the market, depending on whoever relationship that they have, and they come back to us with prices that meet our criteria from a safety as well as a size perspective. So we have a wide range of providers.
Okay, and the deputant made mention of the safety in stoves. Can you just provide me with a little bit of information about how we ensure the stove tops are safe?
Thank you for that question. In our process, we went to due length to make sure that the inventory that folks have, the types of appliances that they have. In stage 3 of our process, we released the list to the providers. They went back to the manufacturers and suppliers to let us know that the appliances that they have meet our criteria. And safety is one of the ones that we use that's from the City of Toronto standards to make sure that all our appliances have safety elements and have that ability in terms of safety, whether it's accessible appliances. And the time that it took for our proponents to go back and negotiate back with suppliers to make sure that there's a guarantee for them to be able to provide those appliances in specific criteria was important for us. We did remove 1 or 2 appliances that did not meet that criteria, because we knew we had X amount of orders on an annual basis for those, and we wanted to make sure that those appliances were on hand and were standardized across the portfolio.
Got it. And if I may, just one last question. Thank you for that answer. Just one last question. And what can you tell me about warranties for these products? Are there varied 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-year warranties? Can we buy extra warranty protection? I mean, so if I go buy a stove, I'm probably given the option of buying extra warranty protection. And I mean, is that option available, and do we exercise it?
That option in terms of the warranty, we do have a 1-year warranty from the delivery date. From the moment they unpack that right at the entrance of the apartment, that warranty kicks in for us. We do not have an option to provide extra warranty with the current vendors, because they are suppliers and distributors. They are not retailers that provide that warranty piece. And so we do not have that part of negotiation with them in a part of our RFP. But that is something for us to explore in terms of what the capabilities of that. At the current moment, the distributors themselves are not the manufacturers, so they cannot offer that warranty to us at this moment. But that is something that we can take away to explore in our next opportunity.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I believe Adele was next.
Yeah, some of my questions are just adding on to John's. So a number of years ago, and I've asked these questions of Nadia, but we didn't get a chance to connect. So a number of years ago, there was an internal audit done on our appliances, and there were some really serious deficiencies in there. And one of the issues was management's response was that Holmes was going to assist with tracking the appliances, and that they were going to be barcoded. And it goes to John's points about ensuring that we were tracking warranties, that we knew when the 1 year was up, that we were tracking repairs to determine if there were deficient appliances, and actually where they were, because there was the indication that you kept spares in case you couldn't get equipment from your distributors, but we didn't know where the equipment was being kept. And I guess maybe about a year ago, it was sort of close to the end of me being on BIFAC, there was a comment made that we weren't barcoding old equipment, old fridges and stoves, that we didn't have the resources to do that, but going forward, we were going to be doing that. So I just wanted to make sure that, you know, we're entering into a new contract. So what is the status for tracking this equipment and the warranties, the deficiencies, the repairs, all of that stuff?
So
what's Holmes capable of doing?
That's a slightly more complicated question. So I will turn that piece to Louisa Andrews, our head of IT, but I will speak to your overall question. So with respect to the inventory tracking process, we are working with our internal divisions to look at an updated implementation plan and next steps for a pilot to inform our portfolio-wide implementation of inventory tracking. As you could appreciate, it's quite complicated in terms of labor management, work processes, as well as training and education of staff. So the barcoding is one element, but we would have to look at our internal work processes to drive the actual work related to the barcode. So if you go in to fix the item or you replace the item, are we scanning the barcode? Are we putting it in the system that we've moved said item? So barcode is only one aspect of it. So we would need to look at the larger scale piece of it. So that's one thing that we're going to be exploring through the pilot in terms of what the labor relation implications are and system changes. In terms of this specific contract, we are putting measures in place to ensure compliance and efficiency. So we will have a weekly appliance tracking tool. So this new system will allow us to track delivery details, serial numbers, and delivery dates. We will have an upgraded appliance request form, which includes a section for third-party technicians to complete.
This is through Homes?
Right now, we're doing the system parallel through Homes. We are working with Louisa to try through the pilot to identify how we could use Homes to track all of these pieces. We will be including photo documentation and manager approval and an updated revised job ordering aid. So Louisa, I don't know if you want to expand in terms of the specifics related to Homes.
Thank you, Nadia, through the chair. Yes, the system is capable of the things that Nadia outlined. It's just that we just need to sit back with our vendor and determine how the solution needs to be configured. We may require some upgrades to our maintenance module. So it's very important for us to be able to, once the inventory is loaded and there is an identification of warranty, that we are also using the maintenance module to tag it to that appliance, so it flags to the superintendent and to anyone that that appliance is under warranty. So we did do a comprehensive review with Yardi and also with KPMG that the technology that we have licensed and we have in place can do this. It's just a matter of being able to do the work and the pilot, as Nadia outlined.
And so when is the pilot planned?
We're in discussions right now, Nadia and myself and finance.
Okay. I do think that there's risk of leakage on this and significant dollar values. And so I think at some point we do have to invest, and I think it should be a priority that we do have to invest in this tracking and ensuring that, we're monitoring the warranties and monitoring the equipment, that we're not buying defective equipment that's being replaced and repaired. And so I do think that we have to invest in the system, because the deficiencies that were recognized, I'm hoping some of these other things that Nadia is putting in place are addressing the deficiencies that were identified in that internal audit. But I think that there are some savings to be had if we do monitor this correctly. I was curious why Mid-Northern didn't bid. You said they were the cheapest, and you said they didn't bid this time.
So through the chair, and I'll let Clinton expand on that, we made attempts to have them involved in the RFP process. Historically, they've gotten either direct awards or change orders. And so we really wanted them to engage in the process. They chose not to. But Clinton, I don't know if you have any specifics, obviously respecting confidentiality of the process, but I don't know if you can kind of speak to that on a high level.
Thank you for the question. Through the chair, we've given Mid-Northern 2 opportunities, and we've had to cancel 2 RFPs because they just didn't bid at all. And you have to understand the complexity and requirements of TCHC based on the size and the amount of orders, as well as the specifications on safety and the criteria that we have on appliances, has limited us in terms of the players that can actually bid within our portfolio. And this is why we've taken those steps to divide the portfolio, to reduce that requirement so that we can actually diversify our vendors. And with this take for the third piece, Mid-Northern again chose not to bid. And they had indicated that potentially they will bid in the future when we do come up for another RFP. But at this moment, they chose not to bid again based on the type of requirements that we required for reporting. as well as warranty requirements in terms of the tracking. Those were things that administratively Mid-Northern was not able to provide, and those are some of the reasons at a high level that indicated they did not bid on our portal.
But they provided you with satisfactory work in previous years.
Yes, they have.
And so did your specifications change?
Our specifications became more of a reporting piece. The high demands of reporting and using data in terms of getting those weekly trackings, those serial numbers that we needed. We took the approach to put the labor work in the front right now to start collecting the serial numbers, the models, the delivery dates, so that when we do have a system in the future, we do have that data to be able to upload and start working through those processes. So the items that we did introduce were more on a reporting perspective, that we needed a little better tracking based on some of the recommendations that were put in place. And those were some of the administrative challenges that Mid-Northern faced.
Okay, can I just go back to this pilot? Can I just ask, are these upgrades that are necessary, or are they included in the 24 budget?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so this pilot will be a 2024 project.
Yeah, provided the budget is approved, then yes.
I just want to make sure they're included.
Nice catch.
Yeah. And my other question was about the increase in the annual spends, because when you look at the table that's in your materials, the West doesn't spend, in the last 3 years, hasn't even spent $2 million, but you're asking for an average $4 million spend, maximum spend in each year. So I just wondered why there was basically double.
So thank you for the question through the chair. We are anticipating an increase in 995 appliances. So we'll have that breakdown in terms of stoves versus fridges for the board, partially because we've seen a downward trend in appliance ordering over the COVID period. And so we anticipate that to create an increase going into 2024. The other factor is we're starting to see quite a few appliances move towards end of life and past the ability to repair, and so we anticipate some increasing requirements to replace appliances. So that adds up to the 995 that we've increased year over year in terms of number of appliances.
And this information comes from that third party that Clinton noted that.
So Clinton, can you speak to that?
Yes, thank you, Adele, for the yes, and that is based on the work order system that we have in homes. When the supers or staff put in a work order, those third-party companies, Mohan and Galaxy, come and do an assessment, and they report that back into homes in regards to what the condition of those appliances are. And based on their feedback, they do indicate this is going to be a 1 year, potentially a 2 year replacement. And so we wanted to make sure that we built that in, looking at the data of the repairs that were put in place, and the notes and feedback that we got from the vendors. They did indicate between 1 year to 2 years that there were some appliances, and that's why we incorporated that that decision and increase into this, so that we were not faced with a point where there was an uptake in appliances and we were not able to meet that demand. So we built that into our forecasting.
Okay, and 995 additional appliances represents what percentage of your normal appliance orders in a year?
Thank you for that. The typical amount that we've had is 3,000, roughly about 3,000 appliances that we've had in terms of orders throughout the year. The challenge that we had in terms of the West appliances was the fact that Mid-Northern was not able to meet the demand, and so we used CARE, who is in the East, as our backup. So a majority of some of the orders from the West were actually delivered by CARE, who is the vendor, the primary vendor in the East portfolio. And that is why we know in terms of the numbers that we have, roughly about 3,200 that we have annually in terms of orders.
So 995 doesn't represent a third, but the prices, your annual spend is expected to be well over double.
So there are a variety of factors that led to the increase in price. So apart from the number of appliances that we're looking to increase, based on what Clinton said, there are also individual costs. So the East vendors to date were approximately 10% higher per unit rates. The new contract factors in the increased cost per appliance. It also factors in some minor administrative costs. I believe there's a 1.5% charge related to Yardi specification. And Clinton, you could speak to that when we actually include.
That was my next question. So,
yeah, go ahead, Clinton.
Thank you. The homes, a piece that we're exploring in terms of synchronizing the organization through the homes, there is a module in homes called Marketplace that allows us to sync the work order system to the appliance orders directly through homes. And that is through our vendor cafe module. And that's the administrative piece that's built in 1.5%. to be able to utilize the marketplace module within homes that gives a direct access for the vendors to the ordering platform through homes. So in a sense, we would put in a work order, which would automate it through the marketplace, and that is sent directly to the vendor within the homes platform. And they are able to fulfill that work order and order through the home system and send back notification of delivery.
So we're paying 1.5% commission on each fridge to Yardi? The price, what's the 1.5 on?
So the 1.5% is anticipated costs if we're asking the vendor to move to the Yardi platform future state, because there is a cost associated with them using that platform. And so we've built it in as a potential contingency if we're asking the vendor to move over, recognizing that this will be an additional charge.
But it's 1.5% of the price of every fridge and stove?
Yeah, so Clinton, it's 1.5% on top of the appliance rate. So there's administrative fees that we've factored in as potential costs going into the next few years of the contracts, but they will only be applied if in use.
Brian, did you have a question?
It's a more general question in terms and more to the committee. I'm just concerned how deep we're diving into this, and the old Tim remark of noses in, fingers out, and I guess a lot of confidence in the staff that they're following through on a lot of these issues, and that we should be looking at it more through the internal audit and looking at that report and following through on it. I just find we are straying a bit into the management area. More my concern is going back to tenants. I would like to know what their satisfaction is in terms of the replacement of these things, because that's the most important piece is, are they satisfied with both the quality and the timing and any issues, and that we should be focusing on those indicators. So just my comments.
Appreciate that, Brian. Thank you for that. With that, I'll call for a motion to approve this item. Can I have someone move it, please? Thank you, John. Thank you, Naram, for seconding. All in favor? Carried. We'll move to item 5. Unfortunately, it looks like we've lost the HSC people in terms of from a timing perspective. So I'll ask any questions we have for management, and if there's any sort of thing beyond the scope there, we'll have to address in the board meeting when we have them back in the room.
I would like to ask that management maybe look at the lobbying or advocacy, because I do think that TCHC needs some assistance with this. The insurers are just arbitrarily deciding that this isn't an area that they want to be involved in, and so we're subject to the narrow market and just the increase in premiums. And I do think that something has to be done with different levels of government. it's required that we have insurance, but the increase in the premiums are just, creating additional pressures, significant pressures on our budget. So I think, this social assisted housing is only going to increase. It's not going to get less. So I think the sooner that we do something about this, or at least look into it, the better we are.
Thank you.
We're at the mercy
Brian.
of the insurers.
Over to you, Brian.
I was just interested in, I think it was Howie's comment that said that the small providers are in some ways subsidizing the large providers. And I guess I just found that quite curious that, which seems to go against the, what our normal thinking would be, because where volume should improve prices rather than increase them. So I'm interested in exploring that issue a little more at some point.
We can sort of delve into that at the board meeting as well with the HSC folks. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, just in relation to the question from the board chair around undertaking activities to lobby the government in relation to these issues, we should keep in mind that our shareholder direction from the City of Toronto requires that if we are going to, as an organization, undertake any lobbying of upper levels of government, we do so in a manner that's coordinated with the city. So if we're going to pursue that, we'll need to do, and I'm not saying we shouldn't, but we'll need to do it in a manner that's consistent with the shareholder direction.
Oh, yes. And sorry, that should have been implied, because I think that we'll only get hearings if it's with our shareholder. I'm not sure they'll listen to us just on our own.
Noted. With that, I'll call for a motion to approve this item. Thank you, Naram. Second. Thank you, Brian. All in favor? Carried. Any other business before we adjourn the public meeting of the special BIFAC meeting? Okay. Can I have a motion to terminate the meeting? Thank you, John. Thank you, Brian. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, everyone, and look forward to discussing these again at the board meeting.